Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. It is me Sukhmani, and in today's video, we're gonna talk about the number of books that I read. I read a total of 108 books in the year 2024. I know it is not so much for some people, but a lot for some other people. And for me, I think I did a good job because I started reading like 2.5 years ago, and it hasn't been that long. And I've not read like a lot of the classics and everything you could ever read, but still, I am getting there and I've been enjoying it so far. So, I just like on this channel, I like to share my life with you guys, with everything, with the vlogs, my travels, and a few films that I put up that are mostly like how I'm feeling. And this is also a part of that. And I really want to share and keep a record of the books that I'm reading, how I was feeling while reading them, what I thought about them, and everything. I am by no means a book reviewer or someone like that. Like, I feel like I might not give a good review about a book, but I will let you guys know how I feel while reading them. So, without any further ado, let's just get into the video and not waste any more time here. So, the first book that I read was The Iron Flame by Rebecca Ross. It is book two from the Empyrean series, and it comes after the fourth wing. I have it here. And I really did enjoy this book here, and I finished it in January. I had so much fun reading it. Look at the amount of annotation I did. I am kind of an amateur annotator, but still, there were like some things that I really liked. Obviously, Zayden and Violet's story is quite engaging, and the dragons are always a plus. And who doesn't love dragons? And I'm very excited about the next book that is going to come out probably in January, right? So, yes, we are very excited for that. We being me and my other personalities. So, the next thing. For some reason, I feel like I'm going in kind of a trend on on my reading journey. And I think I am probably going to be reading at least one alien book series every year. Last year, I read the Clickanian one, and this year, I went through Ice Planet Barbarians. And Ice Planet Barbarians is quite a long series actually, but the storyline is quite similar in most of the books. Even though like there is a major storyline that keeps flowing through the whole series, and I just read like 14 books in that. I mean, 14 is a lot of books. I know. And I know I could have like stopped earlier, but I was enjoying it so much. So, the first one that I read was Ice Planet Barbarians, Barbarian Alien, Barbarian Lover, Barbarian Mine, Barbarian's Prize. Then, after some time, like I took a break while reading so many alien books, and I would usually like listen to the audiobooks for these one. And while I'm painting and all, it is easier to listen to these books because it just like gives me something else to do. And then I continued like reading these books after like a month or so. I took a break for a month. And the next one that I read was Barbarian's Mate, Barbarian's Touch, Barbarian's Taming, Barbarian's Heart, Barbarian's Hope, Barbarian's Choice, Barbarian's Redemption, Barbarian's Rescue, and Barbarian's Thieves. I know it's a lot of barbarians, but what can I say? I enjoyed the books, right? Many people agree with me. I saw Instagram reels about it. So I'm not gonna explain myself. No, that is not what we are doing here. We are just going to move on from this now. Next book series that I read was Blackwood Cellars, and this was like a trilogy, and it was based around like wedding stuff. So in each of the book there is a wedding taking place, or they're preparing for a wedding, or they're like attending a wedding, so it's like that. I don't know, I just needed a light read after so many aliens, and I listened to these audiobooks. And this one, the first one was Blue Hawaiian, the next was Red Velvet. I did like Red Velvet more than the other two because I don't know, the story between Brody and April was something interesting. It had all the tropes like the classic fake dating and all. So I really enjoyed it. The next one was White Wedding. There was also like this standalone book that I read called The Date Swap. The next book that I read was also like that. I read Sam and Sadie's Fake Wedding. It was not that great. The next book that I read was a fantasy. It was a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. It's called Entreat Me, and I did enjoy this one. This was like set in a older time, and you get all the rose wines. The next book that I read was When We're 30. I did enjoy this book. This was like I recently turned 30 this year, so the next I read was another book series. I read a lot of book series this year, very little standalone books. The next book series that I read was To Be Claimed. It had like vampires, werewolves, and humans. And I thought that this recent other vampire book that I read was my first vampire book, but it's not. It was this one. Maybe I forgot about this one because it was very unmemorable for me, and I only gave it like 2 stars for all the three books. It was Wounded Kiss, Gentle Scars, and Primal Lust. There was not enough substance for keeping the story alive. There were a lot of inconsistencies for me. I just could not keep up with the characters. I like they would change characters so fast that I did not develop a strong feeling for any one of them. The next book that I read was Once You're Mine. It is from a series, another like duology. It is called Possessing Her. So it is about obviously a morally grey character. And who doesn't love a morally grey character? But I don't know. I started the second book. It's called Now You're Mine, I guess. But I did not finish it. I have it in my DNF pile. I don't think I'm going to read it anyway. So, now moving on to the next book. The next book series, obviously, was Sinners Anonymous, Sinners Condemned, and the third book in this series I did not read. So, Sinners Anonymous book series is about like dark mafia romance, enemies to lovers, age gap, slow burn. So I was like, yeah, count me in, and I really did like part one. But part two, I did like part two. Obviously, who doesn't love Raphael Viscotti, please? Okay. I did like part two, but the third one, I don't know why I did not read it. I just started it, but I feel like if I have like a lot of gap between reading, I kind of like forget about the story or something, and then I just like stop reading at a point. And I have tried to pick books up again, like after stopping reading in between, but I just could not. So, the next book series that I read was called Beg, Borrow, Steal. It is a three-part book series, and the first one being Beg, Borrow, Steal, the next one being Limits, the third one being Anything But Easy. And these books were anything but not bad. Did I say that right? I mean, what I mean to say is that I did enjoy these three books. The first one was a little too predictable for myself, but I did enjoy the second and the third book, specifically the third book. I felt like the characters had more like zest or something. Yeah. I enjoyed that book. The next book that I read was Pretty Girls Make Graves. And this book, oh my god, this book. It just like, I just did not like this book at all. If I could give it less than 1 star, I would, but I could not. So I gave it 1 star. Zero recommendation for this one. The next book that I read was book one from the series called Better Than Movies, but it was young adult, and I know I felt like it was like every other cheesy movie. I did not like it. It was I just gave it 2 stars. I Let's just keep it at that. There was like the character was a little bit annoying, so I could not. Like most of the time I'm listening to these books and sometimes it's just like just shut up already. So the next book series that I read was The Cocky Kingmans, and this book series was fun to read, and I really liked the fact that it had most of the guys were like the male main character was usually a jock. So they play football, and the female main character is a plus size girly, and I really did enjoy the representation of anybody who does not have a perfect body like the models, that and also like many of the characters that are described in book, like even in fantasy books or anywhere, are all like, I don't know, very unrealistic, and all the models that you see are pretty unrealistic, and normally people don't look like that. And I really liked how body positive it was, and it just made me realize that even if you don't look a certain type, there is always somebody for you. The books in this series had pretty funny names. I mean, funny and double meaning, probably. The first book was The Cock Down the Block. The second one was The Wiener Across the Way. The third one being The Pussy Next Door. And the fourth one being Anaconda Downstairs. But it was like cutesy cutesy, and I really liked the books. I mean, there are like some crises obviously in the third act of the book, third act or the last act of the book. There's always a crisis that you have to solve in most of the books. That is most of the time the structure of how a book goes or how a movie goes. But I did like this book series. The next book series that I read was Dirty Air by Lauren Asher. And this was the book series that tempted me to watch F1. And I did start watching F1. As you guys might know from my vlogs, that I started watching F1 and I have gotten very much into it. I'm going to watch the next season too. So, very much enjoyed these books. The first book being Throttled, the second book being Collided, Wrecked, and Redeemed. The next book series that I read was Powerless. This is the book that I read next. Look at my annotation. And I picked up this book not because it was getting famous on Book Talk or why it was getting famous on Bookstagram. So I started reading this book because I came across this little paragraph thing. I'll read it to you guys. This is about two characters, Payden and Kai, and Payden asks, "What is your favorite color?" We're talking from Kai's point of view. I spin her if only to give myself some time to think. I'd never thought about what my favorite color was before. It never seemed important. Not until I looked into a pair of ocean blue eyes and realized that perhaps drowning was a beautiful thing. Not until I looked into a pair of fiery blue eyes and realized that perhaps burning was a painless thing. Not until I looked into a pair of sky blue eyes and realized that perhaps falling was a peaceful thing. I never thought about what my favorite color was before. I hadn't seen one worthy of the title until now. That is blue. Oh, I mean, oh my god. When I read this like somewhere on Instagram, I just wanted to read this book. So, I did not want to read it on Kindle. I went and got a copy for myself. I rarely buy books because I know my obsession with buying stuff, and I think it has gotten to a point that I think books are not safe now. So I went and got this. This is the first book from the Powerless trilogy, and the next book in this series was, it's like this was book 1. There is book 1.5. That one is powerful, and I listened to audiobook for that one, and it's about a character that is a side character in this book, but this book made me cry, and that book made me cry harder. I just could not stop crying. I mean, literally tears in my eyes, like wailing crying. I was doing that. The second book, Reckless, I have it on my bookshelf, but I have not started reading it yet. I really want to. I thought like maybe I would start it tomorrow. The next book that I read was Until I Get You. And this one was also part of a series or something. It's the first book. I did not continue the series. I like the book was okay, not bad, but not good. So I just left it there. The next book series that I started was called The Windsors. So, do you remember last year I started reading the Lasker brothers? It's kind of like that. So, the Windsors is a family, like they're the Windsors, and they're like seven siblings or eight siblings, like the Kingmans. And the story is about each of the sibling and how they have like a romantic setup or something. There's always hardship and all that stuff. Like the stories are very engaging. I know it's a bit too much, but I did like it. It's so much fun. So the first book in this series was The Wrong Bride. It's all about like they're actually married. They have like a few conditions in which they get their inheritance. So the temporary wife, the unwanted marriage, the broken vows, the secret fiance, and the last one was the devious husband. And the devious husband is about like their sister. All of the other books are about the brothers. And I feel like there's always like this a little bit of a hint that the author had dropped in all of the books about who is going to marry the sister. So it was always like fun anticipating like what's going to happen, what is the story going to look like in the end. The next book series I read was Siren's Mutiny by Jessica S. Taylor. Siren's Mutiny, and the second book in this was The Captain's Revenge. It is about sirens. You guys know what sirens are, obviously. Sirens are like they would call sailors with their song, and it was like a good thing that I stepped away from typical romance and got more into fantasy. The next book series that I read was Cruel Shifter Verse Universe series. It is paranormal romance, and the world building is good. I mean, there were realms and everything, portals and powers, angels, demons, everything, vampires, fae, werewolves, shifters, and all that stuff. I mean, everything that you could think of. And I enjoyed these books a lot. At first, like, I had a few like critical reviews about it for myself. Like, when I would talk about the books, I would be a bit too critical. But now, like, when I've had like almost 2 or 3 months or 6 months, I think so, to absorb the books, I feel like I do like the characters more. I think like there was like some part, like I don't know. It's just like whenever I have to refer to a dialogue or something, I always open my Kindle highlight notes in these books rather than any other book that I've ever read. And the characters kind of had depth, and I really liked the internal self sabotaging monologue that goes on in all of the books. And so the first one was Psycho Shifters, and then we had Psycho Fae, then Psycho Beasts, Psycho Academy, Psycho Devils, and Psycho Gods. I mean, just from the title, you guys can tell. It's kind of psycho, but my kind of psycho. The next book that I read was Toxic by Nicole Blanchard. And if you guys know Bookstagram or Book Talk, you guys know what Toxic is. And I read it because obviously it was getting a lot of recommendation on there. And also, like, there is this one friend that I have who also reads dark romance books, and she told me, like, you should read this one, you might like it. So I read this one, and obviously I did like it. Who doesn't like falling in love with a convicted murderer? The next book series that I read was Royal Elite series by Rena Kent. And if you guys cannot tell already, I am kind of liking all the books by Rena Kent. The stories are very engaging for me. I like this kind of dark romance books. And dark romance is always like a hit and a miss for me, but not with Rena Kent. I read the Royal Elite series. I read Deviant King, Cruel Prince, Steel Princess, Twisted Kingdom, Black Knight, Vicious Prince, and Ruthless Empire. I These were like so good. The next book that I read was Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn, and I feel like this was a retelling of, I don't know which story is that, the one with the curse and the spinning wheel. Is it Sleeping Beauty? But the story, no one is sleeping, but it's like there's like this time warp going on in the storyline, and I really enjoyed the story. It was very engaging. I did give it 3 stars, even though I did enjoy it, but I don't know, most of the time it just like depends if I am feeling the book at that moment. But this was like a good book in my recommendation. Next book that I read was way too different from all the books that I've ever read. I read How to Live Authentically in an Inauthentic Age, The Existential's Guide to Survival. You guys might think, why did I read this book? I might have been thinking about existentialism a lot at that point in my life. I think about it now too. So I read this book and I did enjoy it. There was like some things that went over my head, but maybe if I read it again or read more books in this genre, I don't know. Next book series that I read was Letters of Enchantment, Divine Rivals, and Ruthless Vows. I loved Divine Rivals. It was everything. Everything. I like how it was like kind of a young adult novel, and the ley lines, and I am crazy sucker for ley lines. I mean, my favorite book series is The Raven Boys, so what can I even say? But I don't know, I felt like a bit of a disconnect in Ruthless Vows in like the middle, but then it picked up again, so I gave both of them 4 stars. The next books that I read was Resisting Maxu and Releasing Maledek. These two were part of the Clickanian series, and they just came on my Everend app that these 2 books were available to read, and these were the 2 ones that I've not read, so I just read those from the Clickanian series. And obviously aliens romance, who doesn't love it? Next book series was also alien romance, but I did not like it at all. The stories, like, the story was so inconsistent. We are following like this one character in the first book. In the second book, that character is nowhere to be seen, and you later find out that that is another storyline going on somewhere else in some other time, and it's just like so hard to connect to everything that was going on in these four books. This was series called Britannia Breed, and the first book being The Captive, then The Prey, The Human, and The Dragon. The next book that I read was Still Mine, and the next one being The Unwanted Bride. The next book series that I read was the Shatter Me series by Tahir Mafi. The book story was great, if I say so myself. I did like the books. I mean, the story was good. I read it just for the story and Aaron Warner, obviously. I did listen to the audiobooks for these one. Juliet, so annoying. I have like this beef with her now. Something I don't know. She's so annoying. Also, the fact that most of the writing in the book was simile and metaphors, and it just like after a while, it just like gets annoying when you're just like there's a lot of repetition about words. There's like I feel like there is this whole chapter. I'm not insane. 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 It just made me insane. So yeah. From this series, there is Shatter Me, Unravel Me, Ignite Me, Restore Me, Defy Me, and Imagine Me. I'm just tired of talking. I've been speaking for so long. We're nowhere near ending this. The next book series that I read was Black Tie Billionaires. Who doesn't love a billionaire romance? Obviously, I know it is very classic romance. The guy is a billionaire. He has like this many muscles. He has this and that and that. And since I am somebody who is looking for my own guy, I just like to imagine. Okay, sue me. The first one was Black Ties and White Lies. The next one, Pretty Rings and Broken Things. The third one, Bright Lights and Summer Nights. I liked all these books, specifically the third one, I think so. I mean, the characters and everything, like everything was good about these books. I'm sorry I misjudged. I have read 109 books. I did not like put one book in, I forgot about it. Don't mind me. The next book that I read was Wildfire and Daydream by Hannah Grace. These were from the Maple Hills series. You know, the Icebreaker one. Yeah, these are like the next books in that series. And it was again a sports romance. Next book series that I read was The Cat and Mouse Duet. There's something about Zade Meadows that just gets you every time. Even though it is way too dark romance. I loved both of these books. Like 5 stars from my side. That's it. What I'm going to say. Cannot explain more about it. The next book series that I read was Beyond the Play. And there are 4 books in this series. First Down, Breakaway, Stealing Home, and Wicked Serve. So this one is the one with the siblings again, but there's just like 4 siblings, not like 8. And the first one is about football, the next one is ice hockey, the third one is baseball, and the fourth one is again ice hockey and volleyball. So it was nice fun, obviously, and sports guys are cool. So yeah. The next book that I read was Rook and Rebel by Katie Crew. And it's again Biker Boy, obviously, with somebody who I related to the most. The next book that I read was The Ritual. Yeah, that Ritual. Um, it is from the Lord series. I just read this one book from that series. I know I will read like the other ones, but it just I don't know. I did not feel like continuing it just at that time. I thought that maybe if I come back with a fresh mindset, I might enjoy the next one. I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read was Skin of a Sinner. The opening of this book was so appealing, and then it just like got boring for me to a point that I did not want to finish it, but I just like pushed through. Actually pushed through. I don't know how I finished it. And still I gave it 2 stars because there was some parts of it that actually enjoyed. The next book that I read was The Kiss Keeper by Krista Sander, and it was again a cutesy romance. The next book series that I read was The Love Deception duology, The Spanish Love Deception and The American Roommate Experiment. I liked both of them. Again, they're like what you would find in a romance movie. The next book I read was A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow. This was kind of like I just didn't know what to read, and I saw this book on my Everend. I just listened to it, so nothing special about it. I did enjoy it. There was like not so much, like there were no characters that I just wanted to just like go and meet in person. Next book I read was Black Sheep. Even though this storyline had all the things that I ever like about in a book, murderer, and angst and spice and crazy level of stuff going on, there was something about the book that I could not relate to, and that is why I gave it 3 stars. I don't know, there was something, even though it had like everything that I ever wanted to read. But yeah, next book that I read was Saving the Beast. It was another hockey romance. I just got like a recommendation. I just wanted to put myself in a light space of mind, and I read this one. It was cool and all. There were some things that were a bit inconsistent and weird about the characters. I just gave it 2 stars. Next book that I read was Clean Break by Abby Vegas. There was again like sometimes I just like, even though I know I should not relate to characters that are so morally gray, but the female protagonist in this one was again kind of annoying. So, next book I read was this one, my favorite, Butcher and Blackbird. I listened to the audiobook side by side while reading this, and oh, the Irish accent, everything. First, I was only going to listen to the audiobook. Then, when I got to the point when Rowan says to Solane that you are the one who gouge people's eyes out, she's like, I don't gouge people's eyes out. I pluck them like a lady. That is the point where I stopped and I said, I want to read actually with this in my hand. This is a story about 2 serial killers who fall in love. So there are serial killers who kill other serial killers and they fall in love. There is a lot of content warning in this one, but I loved it. I ordered the second part. I could not find like in the bookstore, so I had to order off Amazon, and I know the quality is going to be shit, but I'm very excited for it. It's coming on 2nd of January probably. I'll just start it right away. I know myself. So yeah, I loved it. Next book series that I read was Shadows of War. So this was a fantasy, paranormal fantasy book series by K. Riley. The first one being Bite of Sin and then Bite of Desire. These both are with vampires. And my god, did I go through these books? I went through them so fast. I mean, so fast. I could not even. Like, I was staying up till 4 a.m., finishing up reading these books. I enjoyed them thoroughly. Amazing. I'm waiting for the third book. Sorry. I'm very excited for it. There is like not crazy amount of spice, but the story and everything, I don't know. Like, there was something. I was so engaged in this book. The next book, and the last one at that, I just finished today is Barbie and the Villain by Veronica Lancet. I have thoughts about this book. This book gave me like crazy anger issue. And like when the book started, like the first 30% of the book was so exciting. I was so engaged in this book. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be a 4-star book, because I don't know, like I cannot move it up to 5-star just by 30%. I was like, it's going to be a 4-star book. Then I got, obviously I know the character Barbie. You know the name Barbie. She is kind of annoying and childish and everything, but the male character's name is Nikander. Nikander. I just cannot say that name. Even when I'm reading the book, I cannot say that name. Nikander. Just like the first thing was the name for me. The second thing was I the character was annoying. There was not enough world building in the first book, in the first half of the book, and then when the book reached like the second half, there was like this word vomit of so much character, like so many different characters, that was all in dialogue. There was not enough description. It was just dialogue, 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 dialogue. And who wants to read just dialogue? I want how that table is looking, right? So, and then I got to the end. I just kind of had a feeling like, because he was, the male character was just being weird after some time, and I just had a feeling that that was how it's going to end. And I just don't know. I know like this is the first part for a trilogy, but I just don't know. I gave it 3 stars. With the amount of word vomit it had, like, and the slow pace of the book, in like, I don't know, the pace was slow, but there were so many words and so many things that was not mentioned like at any point till 50% of the book, that it just made me kind of annoyed, because I could not keep up with the amount of stuff they were spewing at me, and it was just I just finished it today. I was so excited for this book, but then it came down to 2 stars at 50% for me, because I was so annoyed at the characters. I was just like, I want this to finish right now. And then after some time, it got interesting. And when I read the ending, the twist at the ending, I gave it 3 stars. That is all. I have been talking for 1 hour, more than that, because I recorded this video 3 times. So imagine talking for 4 hours non-stop. My throat is going dead right now. So this is all that I read. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, because today I spoke too much. I'm just going to go. Bye.